Good evening and welcome to today's regular organizational meeting of the Board of Education for June 15th. May we have a roll call, Mr. Walker?
Ms. Heinrich?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Rich?
Here.
Ms. Fox?
Here.
I myself am here, and Ms. Weems.
I'm here.
All present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Next, Dr. Goodrum, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are ready now for item A under number 2. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. I move that we approve the agenda for today's regular and organizational meeting as presented.
Support.
Motion made to approve the agenda by Mr. Rich, supported by Mr. Walker. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes. Next, we have announcements. Welcome to the June 15th Farmington Board of Education regular and organizational meeting. Congratulations to all of our graduates. It was an amazing weekend. We are so proud of your accomplishments, and we know that you are on your way to bright futures. The school year has come to a close and has certainly been unprecedented. I would like to thank staff, parents, community members, and most of all, our students for being resilient and patient as we've pivoted from fully remote to in-person. We know that this has not been an easy journey, but we wish you a wonderful summer and hope that you take time to reconnect with family and friends. Farmington Public Schools has a vision for high achievement for all of its students. Together with our community, we will engage every student in a quality learning experience, empowering each student to become a thoughtful, contributing citizen in a changing world. The board's priorities for 2020-21 are fostering development of 21st century skills, assessing program impact on student achievement, fostering a positive district culture and climate that incorporates equity and inclusion, recruiting, hiring, developing, and retaining high-quality staff that reflects diversity, and ensuring equitable practices. The first goal was build board unity. The board agreed on goals earlier in the year, and we've been monitoring ourselves. The first goal was building board unity. I believe that we've accomplished that. Our board continues, however, to work towards becoming a fully certified board by December of 2021, and our newer board members are at least halfway through that process already. Well done. Thank you for that. The second goal is to conduct a superintendent search and create a transition plan. I believe we've accomplished that as well. We're looking forward to Dr. Delgado leading the district beginning July 1st. We also said that we wanted to focus on student achievement data. We have done that, and we today have an end-of-the-year student progress goal report that we'll go over later on today. We said that we wanted to improve community relations. To further this goal, we formed the Community Engagement Committee, and they had their first meeting and community event a few weeks ago. We also said that we wanted to proactively plan and provide timely communications on the continuity of learning plan. We've done that as well. The district is providing a robust summer learning program and plans on returning to a full 5-day in-person schedule in the fall. We said that we will ensure district resources are aligned to priorities and goals. At the last meeting, we held our public hearing on the budget. Tonight, we will be approving the 22 budget, the 22 tax levy, and the second amendment of the 2021 budget. We've accomplished a lot this school year, and I'd like to say that we've accomplished all of our goals for this school year. I want to thank Dr. Goodrum and all of our board members for an extreme amount of hard work. I look forward to developing goals for the next year with our superintendent, and while we usually don't meet over the summer, we will likely need to be meeting over the summer in order to develop our goals and continue on this positive progress. Public comments will be shared after discussion items. This will be the opportunity to share general comments. Anyone present in the WebEx event may express a live comment. Sign up is required, and the sign-up form is available on our website. If the public comment is intended to be critical or express dissatisfaction with a particular staff member, student, or group, you're encouraged not to identify the person by name. You may request a private meeting or utilize the complaint process found in our policy manual. which provides for resolution at the complainant's closest point of origin. Generally, board members and the superintendent will not respond to public comments during the board meeting. Issues may be referred to the superintendent for investigation, study, and/or response. We will now move to items from the secretary. Mr. Walker.
The board has received communications regarding contract negotiations, instructional time, elementary recess, FHS softball coaches, and Wood Creek PYP news. Communications are acknowledged, and when appropriate, a response is provided. A list of correspondence can be found in the board packet, which is available on the FPS website.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. We will now move to the legislative update. Our legislative liaison is out today. She has an excused absence, but Mr. Rich will be giving the legislative update.
Thank you. As of today, the Michigan Senate approved $4.3 billion in federal COVID-19 relief spending for schools. The Senate voted 35-0 to pass the education bill, which featured $840 million for school districts provided through the December round of coronavirus relief, and $3.3 billion for districts through the March round of relief. So this is funding that we have been waiting for months now, and it looks like there's finally some movement on it. It's not quite clear how this funding is being distributed yet, but we are hopeful that this means that it'll be coming soon, as, like I said, we've been waiting on this for many months to come through the state.
Very good. Great update. Thank you. We will now move to district updates. Dr. Goodrum.
Thank you. And I will be brief. We have a very lengthy agenda. First of all, I just would like to extend again congratulations to the hundreds of graduates that we have seen over the last 2 weeks. We've had 5 graduations, the IB graduation, Farmington Central High School, Farmington High School, North Farmington High School, and Visions Unlimited. And I hope that everyone has a fantastic summer, all the students, most of whom finished on Friday. Visions Unlimited is still in session, so we know those students still have at least this week, maybe next week as well. Want to make sure to acknowledge and thank all of our staff for every single thing that they did this school year. This was a year. I wish that I could give everyone a year off for this year. We're not able to do that, but you certainly earned it. Thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for all of your flexibility. And we just look forward to having as normal a year as we can next year. So we appreciate everything that you've done. Again, would like to thank the board for entrusting me with the tremendous responsibility of leading this district through this tumultuous time. I hope that everyone is at least satisfied. We did the best that we could in light of everything that we had going on. Really want to acknowledge especially all of our administrators, all of our administrative assistants, bus drivers, nutrition workers, everyone. It truly takes a village, and teamwork makes the dream work, and I just think we did the thing. We did a great job this year. Thank you, everyone. Very quickly, though, our Student Roundtable usually presents tonight. They are not here because some of them have prom with Akila. But I do want to announce the officers for next year. Our president for next year is Alyssa Peak. Our vice president is Nikhil Sheth. Our secretary is Morgan Todd. And our PR rep is Galen Weiss. We're very, very proud of our Student Roundtable representatives. And I'm sure that Alyssa looks forward to joining you all next year as the student rep for the board.
Very good. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the 2020 bond update. Mrs. Kaminsky?
Yes. We can hear him.
Yes.
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 Yes, thank you. So what we plan to present tonight is the first of our dashboard reports, and this is something we intend to do quarterly with the board and with the community to just kind of give a snapshot of what's going on with the bond. It's meant to be high level, but kind of touching on where we're at financially, where we're at, what projects are we doing, what projects are we working on, and just provide some perspective as in terms of challenges or things that are happening out there. So this is our June 2021 dashboard report. This is our first one. And really, as quickly as school ended, you know, it's the switch is flipped and we're back into construction season on some of these schools. So what we've come up with input from the district is really a dashboard report. And what you'll see, this is really just a summary of the breakdown. So again, the district passed a $98 million bond last March with a lot of support from the community. And this just kind of gives a quick breakdown of the bond of it itself. The bulk of the bond is related to construction, about $68.5 million. The bond also has $4 million or 4% for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That's what FF&E is short for. We also have buses, which is about $5.5 million. And then 20% of the budget is set aside for technology and security measures, and that's about $20 million. So that's just that'll always kind of be static, but as a reminder of, you know, kind of what's included with the bond and how the dollars are being spent. This area here is more of a financial recap. So again, here's the breakdown of the pie chart, if you will, showing the $98 million. To date, we've projected or spent or committed about almost $16 million. A lot of those are our first packages that are starting construction now, which is our bid pack 1 and 2, which I'll touch on here shortly, as well as some of the major professional service teams, architects, construction managers, et cetera, survey work, soil borings. So those are the work committed. We're going to start spending that money here very quickly as we kick off our summer. To date, we've spent less than $1 million, but again, that number will be changing quite rapidly. And I should mention that this is really a snapshot in time. So this is through April of 2021. We have our cost to complete, our forecasted commitments, our reserve owner contingency, and our estimate at completion. So again, at this time, we've got a great slate of projects planned for the bond. The bond, again, is planned to be sold in 2 series, and the district sold the first series last year. And currently, they're projected to sell the second series in the spring of 2023. These graphs here simply illustrate kind of the committed cost by category. So currently, we've spent about 23% or committed about 23% of the construction budget. We have furniture, buses, which are underway, and technology, which are kind of all in planning. And those numbers will be changing in the future as well. Down at the bottom, this kind of gives a synopsis of what's going on this summer in the district from a construction project phase. These are projects that have been before the board that we presented to and have been supported, and we've been working behind the scenes getting ready for the summer. So the first one is bid package 1, and those are the renovations to East Middle School. Those will be happening, those got kicked off on Monday, and work is underway, and that will continue through the summer. So that's our blue bars here, and then really our project closeout, which is kind of our punch list, getting all the right documentation over to the district, final paying the various vendors and getting things wrapped up. That'll trail off as we end out the year. And then our second bid pack spanned 5 different buildings. So we have renovations to Forest Elementary, Gill Elementary, and Lanigan Elementary. And you'll notice a lot of these schools are basically following the same order as they did in the 2015 bond. They were the first schools to be touched, and the last schools that haven't been touched since the last bond. So that's kind of a general theme as we work through future phases as well. But those projects will continue through the summer and into the school year, and really wrap up, in that early end of winter, early spring time frame. And the work that's predicated, or the work that's planned for during the school year, is not the heavy invasive stuff. We're planning more of a classroom approach, where we're going to remodel a classroom on a 1 week per classroom type basis to kind of work through some of the renovations there. And then this summer, associated with that, we've got a little bit of site work at Farmington High School and also North Farmington High School. So at Farmington High, there's a little area in front of the band that where the band trailers stored. That area will be repaved. And then over at North Farmington School, that's a little bigger project. We'll be paving the east staff lot, as well as the back driveway behind the school to the north. And those will all be complete this summer. So those are projects currently underway. At the same time, we're also gearing up for next summer already. We're starting our design work for phase 2. And phase 2 includes what we call bid package number 3, and that's going to be renovations to Farmington High School. We've also got bid package number 4, which is going to include 3 more elementaries. That's work at Hillside, Longacre, and Wood Creek. And then our 5th bid package is Power Middle School, and those are some more renovations there. All of this work is in design. We're through our first phase of design and into our second phase, which is called design development. And we'll be working through construction documents, and we'll be bidding this work out in the fall, early winter. The plan right now is to have all of those recommendations to the board before the Christmas holiday this year. There's a lot of bond work out there. You guys may have heard, but Farmington Schools is competing with a lot of other school districts for construction work. And what we want to do as a project team is get out in front of it, get to the market early, and try to capitalize on some of the best contractors. Make sure that you can bid the work when people have the availability to do the work. We expect to attract the most bidders this way as well, which will leverage kind of the bond dollars that have been set aside. So that's our plan. The other part to that is just making sure we have enough lead time to procure the materials that are needed. Not everybody may be aware, but the construction industry, like many, is undergoing it's a little bit wild west out there right now, and we've got materials that are that used to be readily available are now months and months to get. We are hearing things weekly, not just in Farmington, but on many school districts that we're working on, that it's a week-to-week thing where the smallest of things seems to be happening, where you might be able to get the roofing material, but now you can't get the fasteners. Roofing material in itself used to be a 2 to 3 week type of lead time. We've been notified that it's now 7 months. Thankfully, we're not looking for much structural steel, but if you want structural steel and metal decking, those lead times have risen to an unprecedented 52 weeks, almost a full year of planning to just get the material. So the market's seeing some changes, and we're trying to all stay on top of them and plan the work accordingly. So our first step is really to keep these design projects moving forward and get them before you guys so that we can answer any questions, but hopefully get these projects moving forward and get ready for the following summer. I did forget to mention the district-wide signage package. So as part of the plan is many of the signs across the district are outdated or at least not uniform in their appearance. And the district, Wakely Associates, and ourselves have been talking through that and trying to standardize a signage that is attractive, but also can present that uniformity across the district. Kind of in the early stages of that. We're not quite sure when we'll bring that forward, but we're working through the design currently on that one. So that's really our dashboard report. It's, again, meant to be very high level, but happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Scott, for your report. And I understand the delay with things being delivered, you know, as a consumer myself, throughout this whole time through the pandemic. People have had the, you know, may have put in an order for maybe, you know, appliances or furniture. You got a delay, you may not have gotten anything. So with that being said, I, you know, would like to have the community just be patient with you until you can get your products. Also, you mentioned that, you know, the prices may change. Could you explain to the community why our prices could possibly change? You know, you were saying that during that time. So let the community know why there's a possibility of a price change. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. I haven't been doing this forever, but it's been over 20 years, and I've yet to see some of these trends that we're seeing right now, and they're really coming from all different angles. There are a lot of reasons for the price increase. You know, COVID, the pandemic being one of them. It's caused a lot of supply chain issues. There's been, you guys may have heard about the frost event where there was a freeze in Texas. Well, a lot of, you know, chemicals and petroleum, all that comes from that area. And that's had an impact on the availability of materials, you know, with the tariffs, and some of the products come from overseas, unfortunately, and that takes time. And there's instances where COVID has left ships, you know, stuck in harbors. Like a couple weeks ago or a month ago, a large ship got stuck in the Suez Canal, and that's a major thoroughway for those kinds of things. Just the cost of things have spiked. Steel, raw lumber, these are things that are up 40 to 70% in just a very short period of time. And we do hope that they come back down, but right now it is what it is, I guess, in respect to that. You know, it's causing a lot of people in the residential industry to consider what they're doing with their plans because of the cost of lumber. Steel is a big thing. It's not huge as it relates to the scope plan for the 2020 bond, but it's amazing what things do have steel components to them. You know, lockers, and it's a factor in a lot of things. So there isn't a single reason why it's up, but it is up, and the market's very hot, and there's a lot of competition out there. There seems to be a general the Southeast Michigan market could use more people in the construction trades right now, quite honestly, to, you know, skilled labor to do the work. You know, that's one of the reasons why some of the work at the elementaries is occurring in second shift. That just the market there just wasn't the certainty that you could do the work or get the right bidders to bid the work over the summer. And so there's a lot of competition in other school districts as well. So we want to make sure we have attractive packages for these folks to look at. We want to keep their attention, and we certainly want to invite them, and we continually reach out to those vendors. McCarthy and Smith construction managers have very good relationships. You know, we've got a lot of vendors that we've worked with in the last bond that we'd like to keep their interest as well. And, you know, we're going to keep planning the work, and we'll get successful results. But we are seeing some big spikes in things, and the volatility of the availability of materials, in addition to the cost volatility, is a little bit worrisome right now, and it's something that we have to keep, you know, weekly on top of.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? I'm sorry. Mrs. Heinrich.
Yeah, I do have a question, because these projects were bid out and the costs were set, and now we've seen an increase in prices of materials and labor and things like that. Is that going to impact us financially as far as what we have budgeted and what we're planning on spending on these bond projects? Are vendors locked into that, or will we see overages as a result of it? And also, you know, the second part of the question is things that are being bid out right now at high prices. If the cost of materials goes down, will we see a savings at the end of that also?
Yeah, I think that's something we have to kind of keep, you know, at our fingertips a little bit. I've heard no rumblings of those kinds of items just yet. You know, and they sometimes they'll surface later, but generally, if you were awarded a contract, you know, you're required to honor it. But there are always some unforeseen or extenuating circumstances which may require us to look at. But as of right now, I'm not hearing anything where that's a major concern. I think as we move into the future work, as we estimate the next phase, you know, we're keeping some money in that. We're adding some money to the estimates for escalation because we are seeing that. But generally, you know, the idea is you enter into a lump sum contract with these folks for the scope of work, and you hope that that they'll, you know, stick to what they promised and live forward. If there's something crazy though that goes on, and if we need to discuss, we'll certainly bring that to the district's attention and try to work through that situation as fast as we can. But generally, that you enter an agreement for the price, and if it goes up, you know, as long as it's, you know, reasonable, it's usually the contractor's issue to deal with, and conversely, if it goes down, you know, that works in their favor as well.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you so much for that report. We appreciate that update. We're now ready to move to the strategic plan update. I think, is that Dr. Coffin?
Thank you, President Weems. I am so excited this evening to be here. I wish we could have all been in person, but we'll make this work. So as you can see, we have a plethora of panelists tonight with us, and these are all of our strategic planning leaders who are very excited to share with the board a brief bit of information around our work so far in the strategic planning process. So I am going to share my screen here, if I can do that. Let's see what I'm going to share here. And we will get started. Do that. My calendar. Okay, can you see that, I hope?
Not
No.
yet.
Oops. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet,
No.
Dr. Coffin.
No, Kelly, we can't.
Okay. I got to make sure that I'm able to present. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, let's try this again. Creations. Let's try this.
Looks like it's coming up. Got
We
it.
can see it now.
Got it.
Okay. So, as you heard President Weems share at the beginning of each meeting, and tonight as well, about the district priorities. Our strategic plan is based on the 5 district priorities that fall under the umbrella of equity and innovation. From those 5 priorities, we have identified 8 goal areas, and you can see those listed there. We're going to hear from each of our strategic planning committee leaders tonight just a little bit about where we are going to be moving this work forward, and a little bit of information on the process and how that's been going. This all also takes into account the work from the 2017 initiative of moving forward in a strategic planning process. So all of that work that was done by community stakeholders and staff members has been brought together and is all included in these 8 goal areas. Just a little bit about the process before I turn this over to our goal leaders. Each of our goal area committees has met at least 3 times in March, April, and May, and will resume committee meetings starting in September. Goal area co-leaders and co-chairs also meet monthly to debrief and plan for the next upcoming meeting. They also work collaboratively to identify at least 2 objectives that will help move the work forward in the upcoming school year. And this is based on the incredible feedback that we've gotten from our community in each of these committees, the debriefing process that I mentioned earlier, and then other information, including past work that has been done, past information, and then other information related to setting up a strategic pathway forward for the district. So I am going to start tonight with our teaching and learning goal area. Our co-leaders for this goal area are Marley Bellinger, Roisin Hunter, and Kevin Lashbrook. Our co-chairs, who are our building administrators, our administrators who serve as support, is the birthday boy, Mr. Joe Green, and Chandra Hurton. I am going to turn it over now to Marley and Roisin.
Hi everyone, I'm Marley Bellinger, and just speaking about the process briefly, it's just been such an honor to have the opportunity to work with such a group of committed, passionate, innovative teachers. It's really been something I look forward to each week, and I feel really empowered having this position and this opportunity in the district. So, one thing we've been thinking about is developing the profile of a lifelong learner and working on engaging students as we help them become 21st century learners. And one direction we're going in is making sure tasks are authentic and meaningful. So, we've all heard students say, why do we have to do this? When are we going to use this in real life? And we really want to have a good answer to that question. And there are places where teachers and classrooms and schools are doing really amazing things with authentic learning and student choice. And one of our goals going forward is to use the sources that already exist and draw from the amazing things that teachers are already doing and just kind of compile that so we can all be doing those amazing things. And Roisin is going to talk about our second goal area that we worked on together.
Okay. Hi, everyone. That's funny, Marley, what you said, because I was going to talk about that also, about feeling empowered. But let me just talk about our second goal. We've been discussing the need for collaboration across all grade levels, but more than just collaboration, we're talking about alignment, aligning our teaching from K through 12. And, we're realizing that there's a huge need for this. And because, best practices should be shared with all stakeholders. And I think we should all be aware of everything that's going on in our district. And our goal is to have that representation on our committee. So we're working on getting representation from all grade levels as well as special ed teachers as well. So we want to make sure that we're working collaboratively. And I'll tell you, we've only had 3 meetings, but we've also had debriefs. And I cannot believe how much I learned just from watching and listening to my middle school and high school colleagues. And I have a whole new respect for them. And really, this is the first time, I think, in the district where we've ever, this is I just ended my 24th year as a teacher, all in Farmington. And this is the first time that teachers, classroom teachers specifically, and special ed teachers, have been sought out to share their expertise and to lead with the knowledge that we have. And I commend and I'm honored, and I thank Dr. Coffin for leading this, because every committee, and we had that huge meeting where it was all of us, every single person was saying the same thing. We have so much to offer. And when you're coming to your teachers, I know this is a little off task, but I have to say it, when you're coming to your teachers and the people who are in the throes of it, I think you're going to see some amazing things that are going to happen in the fall. They really amazing things, and the level of enthusiasm has been great. And just talking about the district, about alignment, we talked about the need for professional development, the need for time in our schedule for us to meet, because it's not all of fifth grade teachers working together at a PLC on our lunch hour. It's going to be about how do we get teachers from middle school and high school to meet with elementary. So that's going to be something we have to work out, but that's our goal. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marley and Roisin. Next, we have our organizational effectiveness goal. And the co-leaders for that goal include R.G. Gaines, Jennifer Katz, and Catherine Olenzik. Sorry, Kathy, with the co-chair of Allison Robinson. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen for her to talk about the work of their committee.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for having me. Being part of this organizational effectiveness team has been an amazing experience thus far. I am fortunate to work with a fantastic team of district employees, parents, and community members. Our team has brought their A game to each and every meeting. Because of this, our brainstorming sessions were powerful, impactful, and engaged everyone in dynamic conversations. A couple of the messages that we heard for our committee was that communication to all stakeholders was key, as well as making sure that students receive the same education and opportunities, regardless of which school they attend in Farmington. We're going to be doing some inventory programming at each school and looking at inconsistencies as well as commonalities. We also hope to make more available to parents the multiple pathways that children can take through Farmington Public Schools. This will help our students and our parents make the best decision possible for their learning. So after listening and engaging in these conversations, our team developed our 2 objectives. One is to identify the commonalities between FPS learning opportunities, and 2, to identify available pathways for students and clearly communicate them out to our fantastic community.
All right, thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate that. Next, we're going to move to our effective management of resource goal. Our co-leaders here are Ms. Peggy Babcock and Ms. Heather Morden, and our co-chairs are Curtis Lovio and Mr. Tom Shelton. I am going to turn it now over to Heather.
Hi, I'm happy to be here this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming in. I know it's been the end of the week, or not the week, the school year for some of us. So it's been a little crazy coming from prom, but I'm glad to be here, and I'm happy to share the wonderful information that we've learned from this committee that we've had. We've had a lot of time to discuss what actually does this mean, effective management of resources. Talking about school budget and just educating parents and community members on what do we have to offer, what is all this money that comes from bonds, where does it go, who allows it to go here, and who controls it. So it was a lot of background information on public education that we were able to learn about, as well as curriculum. So we've had some really good information that I learned as a parent, not only as a teacher at Kenbrook, but also as a parent of 3 boys at Farmington High. I had a lot of questions that were answered, which has been very helpful. And so I am lucky enough to have the lens of a parent and a community member as well as a teacher. So what our work is that we're going to be looking into is expanding the awareness of all these wonderful things that our district has to offer, and how to make sure that these things are getting out to the community so they know that we have these. And then also the equitable allocation of resources throughout the district that we're in. So it's been great, and I'm looking forward to our next steps in this process.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Sure.
Next up, we have our Community Relations Goal Area Committee that is led by co-leaders Jackie Meyer and Kendra Montante, and our co-chair, Ms. Chris Solomon. So I'm going to turn it over to Kendra.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. We basically focused on community relations, as was stated, and we saw a lot of similarities to some of the other goal areas, as Jennifer stated, and as Heather just stated. So you'll see some overlap there. Our stakeholders had a lot to share, so we did a lot of listening, which was great. We had stakeholders from teachers to community members to students. So it was wonderful. We had a great mix of people. And our objectives, as you see, the first one is focused communication outreach to stakeholders, new families, existing families, and senior citizens. So one of the things that we realized is that we have some gaps in some of our communication with some of our new family members, and we need to work on reconnecting with some of our existing family members and some of our other stakeholders. So we have some work to do, which is always good. Our objective number 2 is to develop partnerships and enrichments that focus on increased student opportunities, which you kind of have heard before. And we have many, many, many partnerships in the district, which is amazing that we have those wonderful partnerships. And right now we're kind of lacking a point person or a contact person to develop those relationships and further those relationships. So one of the things that we're working on this summer is creating a spreadsheet of existing partnerships so that we can start building upon those existing partnerships and creating some new partnerships. But it was wonderful to collaborate with everyone and help to work on filling some of our gaps that we have. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kendra. Next, we have our goal area of leadership for equity and innovation. This is led by our co-leaders, Shauna Greca, Anna Raleigh, and Dania Stump, with our co-chairs, Rob Kaufman and Ms. Eris Stewart. I am now going to turn it over to Anna.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Our committee had amazing discussions around leadership, around what it means to be a leader. And the 2 areas that were really, in the end, focused on was really defining what it means to be a leader for equity and innovation, and not just define it sort of within our group, but to really have 3 to 5 components that would be clear, concise, easy for all stakeholders to understand. So that's one of the really big objectives that we have, is to just really determine those together with the community. We had a lot of input and a lot of information. So the next steps would be to really, really hone down on what those qualities are and making them really user-friendly, so that there's a language that we can use throughout the district to really describe what we want in our leaders, from students to the board, across the board, among all stakeholders. And the second, so we really looked at leadership more broadly than just, the board or the central office, but really looked at leaders at every level in our district. What do we want our student leaders to look like, parent leaders, so really looking at the community. And we looked at every single stakeholder and had discussions about what does it look like. So we've gathered a lot of information and thinking, and in the end, it was tough. But when we looked at all the community feedback, really one thing that stood out to us was student leadership. And how do we bring, because students are really our future community members. They're the ones who really we need to give opportunities to get their voices heard and to lead in a meaningful way. So really creating cross-district culture of equitable student leadership was another objective that we had. So we're really excited. We're really excited about the next steps and really developing the steps and strategies and objectives and actions to get us there. So everybody was really amazing. Shout out to my co-leaders, to our co-chairs. They've been extremely helpful in this process, and it's been exciting to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Next up, we have our goal area of creating a culture for equity and innovation. Our co-leaders for this goal area are Nancy Joshin, Yevgenia Pokalo, and Leslie Svoke. And our co-chairs are Mr. Chris O'Brien and Mr. David Reese. So I am now going to turn it over to Nancy.
Good evening, everybody. Really excited, as everyone else is, to be a part of this work. Thank you. So the first thing our team did was to define equity and innovation. So we looked at both of those components on different evenings. We made sure to hear all the voices on our team. And that was one of the most powerful parts of the process, as many other teams discussed, was to hear from students and teachers, administrators, community members, parents. That was really powerful to hear each voice. We spent a lot of time in small groups, then brought back to the bigger group so we could hear each and every person. Then we spent some time acknowledging our current state relating to equity and innovation. This was a very honest and transparent conversation, and very powerful also. Then we discussed what our understanding was of the difference between equity and equality. Then once we had a common understanding of what equity was, our team felt it was very crucial to focus on holding each other accountable through this process. So during that time, we decided our next step for next year will be to discuss what our system needs to look like in order for a culture of equity and innovation to be who we are in Farmington. And that must embody overcoming structural obstacles and gaps in opportunity, and also provide access to equitable learning environments for all students, so all capabilities can be empowered for our students. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy. Next, we have creating a system for equity and innovation with our co-leaders, Dr. Kyle Curtis and Ms. Kim Morrow, and our co-chairs, Dr. Lydia Moore and Ms. Rhonda Henry. I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Curtis.
Good evening, everyone. Our group spent a lot of time doing the same thing as a little bit of the last group, where we really spent quality conversation around what is equity and what is innovation. And our conversation around equity actually took us 2 meetings to get through, for similar reasons that Nancy just shared, kind of that difference between equity and equality, and a lot of the history of things that people were bringing to the table around equity. We have a very strong community presence in our group, and so it was really great to hear from our community members. And they're not all just parents. A lot of them just work in the community and wanted to be a part of this. So we really spend a lot of time identifying those definitions for equity and innovation, and we're able to synthesize thoughts through the use of our Padlet and come to some conciseness for what we want to use as a working definition to move forward in the fall. And our plan for the fall is 2 things: to really start getting at how do we create systems in our district that will move not only building to building, but elementary through secondary, that really promote equity and innovation. And then we really felt like we wanted to continue our recruitment process. We didn't have a very strong staff representation or student, so we really want to continue in that in the fall.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And our last goal area for tonight is our Futures Committee. Our co-leaders are Sean McGuckin, Chelsea Pitcher, and Sean Reisdorf. And our co-chairs are Kelly Kaminsky and Mr. Lawrence Strouder. So I'm going to try to turn this over to Sean McGuckin. Sean, you want to talk about this one?
I would love to.
Yay.
So yeah, this has actually been a lot of fun for us, and a lot of what has been said already by all the other committees really helps fuel the work that we're doing. So you talk about, or you hear them talk about innovation, you hear them talk about new ideas, new ways of thinking, and so that kind of flows right into our first goal, to discuss and identify what could be for all of our FPS learners. And the exciting thing about that is this past school year, we've already had teachers that have examples of going through this process of having an idea, proposing it, implementing it, and then evaluating its effectiveness, and then coming back to the drawing board, and then creating new opportunities that could potentially already be some of these long-lasting projects and curriculum design implementation. So, there are a lot of fun things that have already happened, not even as a result of what we're doing, but just we're already seeing our staff kind of take the bull by the horns and just say, hey, this will help me teach or my kids learn, or both. And so then that kind of works right into our second objective, which is to work with FPS profile of a lifelong learner to explore paths forward for future learning opportunities. Because we know that we have the tools in the buildings now to do some unique and new things and create new opportunities for kids. But we also know that there are going to be jobs in 5 years, 10 years that don't even exist yet, that we would like to be ready to be able to prepare students for when they graduate from our programs. So a lot of fun, exciting work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much. So as all of our co-leaders have shared tonight, the work is just beginning. So some of our work that we're looking for in the future is to continue to connect the information when we get the equity audit back here at the end of the month to our strategic plan and our equity strategic plan and district strategic planning efforts to come together. We had identified at the beginning, at the beginning of the calendar year, some key performance indicators and metrics. We are in the process of gathering baseline data, and we will share that with the board in the fall as our starting point. Also, you heard a few of the goal leaders share today about recruiting additional committee members. And so we're going to take an active role to make sure we have representation on all of our committees. And also, we're going to get these committee meetings starting back up in September. I know some of the goal leaders didn't mention this, but many of our committees are actually doing summer homework. So we have a very engaged community really wanting to see this be a successful effort for the district, and that's very exciting. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the co-leaders who are stepping up and doing this amazing work, to our administrators serving as co-chairs who are really helping and supporting and allowing us to start to build leadership capacity throughout the district and across all positions. We have our co-leaders come from their administrative assistants and teachers and paraprofessionals, and anybody who is interested in really serving the district in this capacity has had that opportunity to do so. So I just want to thank everybody for that. That is all we have to share is our brief update. I'm certainly happy to answer. I can answer any questions, or any of our co-leaders or co-chairs are happy to answer as well.
I want to also echo that thank you. I'm really happy with what I've heard, and I get the sense of fidelity in terms of, the folks that are doing this work and actually, working through it. So thank you to everyone involved. Really happy also to see so many people involved and presenting to us today. Mr. Rich, you had some questions or comments, followed by Mr. Walker.
Thank you. No questions, only comments. I know how much work has gone into this, how long this process has been, and being able to do that during a pandemic and seeing all of these people who have volunteered their time and effort. And it's not just a little bit of effort, but their full dedication. Nobody went in halfway on this, and it really shows. And so I'm thankful to you, Dr. Coffin, your team, all of the co-leaders, all of the co-chairs, and everyone else involved in getting us to this point. I know this is then continued work that we have moving forward, but this puts us in a great place to succeed. And I know, as you said, people have some summer homework that they're going to be working on, and I am looking forward to our next update, because this is a fantastic start. Thank you.
Mr. Walker, and then Mrs. Smith.
If I could just echo some of the statements already made, that this is an excellent job on the part of everybody, the collaborative effort, the teamwork, the number of people involved on it on all the different levels. That's something really exciting, and that's a part of transformative change that, at least as I see it. I also think that there's a really great opportunity for some synergy between the Community Relations Committee and our Community Engagement Committee. And it just stood out to me that we don't need to, remake the wheel. If they're making some serious progress on this committee, that perhaps somebody from that particular committee should have an opportunity to sit in and begin to collaborate on that level. So now we've got some board collaboration directly in, and that community collaboration right back. And this is an area that we all have learned over the past year that we cannot work hard enough in. So if we can make that happen, I think that would be an excellent way to go to bring the leadership and this committee and this work from the community together and move it forward. So I just wanted to share that.
Great point. Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
Dr. Coffin, I always say, and many of you know and know me well now, that I like the Tiffany gift inside the wrapping. Dr. Coffin, you brought that Tiffany gift. Even the wrapping. The genre of people that you brought before us today was phenomenal. Thank you for all you have done, not only during getting this strategic plan together, because this is what we have been looking for quite a while, but not only doing that, but doing the work under the pandemic and working hand in hand with Dr. Goodrum and Ms. Hendrickson, and then also trying to get us back in school. I'm, and you know me from this weekend, I'm not speechless, ever. This was awesome. And thank you so much, and thank you to your committee leaders. And I was sitting here like I was watching the Emmys or something. I was like just blown away. Thank you so much. This is what we have been looking for. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from you guys. Keep up the good work, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Fox.
So, Dr. Coffin, you and I talked at one of our graduation celebrations this weekend, and I was absolutely amazed at our conversation that we were able to have in terms of innovation for our students. And then today, what I was struck with is the fact that the teachers, elementary, middle school, and high school, are being aligned together, and it is the it really is the proof in terms of what you and I were talking about. You said we talked about youngsters being ready for IB and some of the more rigorous programs. And what we talked about was exactly this, is that if you want kids to be ready for honors and what have you, you start at kindergarten. You start at first grade. And then you have that moving forward. And I could see that within this alignment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Heinrich.
You can't hear thank you enough times, but just as a board member, I'm really excited. I mean, I'm just listening to all the presentations and just remembering back. I think you said the strategic planning was in 2017, and I was, as a community member, I was so excited to be involved in that process, and I'm just so appreciative for all the work that everybody is doing and the collaboration, and I'm just so excited to be to see this and be involved, and just as the board, as what we're going to do to work with you, with the community, and moving forward in the district, and just know that so appreciative of all the leadership and all the innovation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I think that ends our report. Thank you, Dr. Coffin.
Thank you.
I think we're ready to move to the DEI report.
Just very briefly, wanted to update everyone on a couple of initiatives that we have that are still going on. One is the equity audit, the educational equity audit, which was a very lengthy process. As you know, we did the surveys, we had focus groups at every single school, and we had our final interviews, I think, last week. And so we are expecting our report coming midsummer, and we look forward to using that report, as you heard it referenced in a couple of the presentations on strategic planning, because as was stated multiple times, we're really looking to align everything. We're not doing anything in silos. We're making sure that everything is coordinated together, and that especially Dr. Coffin and I are working together, that whole equity and innovation is going to be at the heart of everything in Farmington Public Schools as we move forward. And so we look forward to getting that data back and making sure that the committees have that information as they are planning their future steps. Also, we are completing our third module with the Midwest and Plains Equity Technical Assistance. The two that we completed already were leading equity-focused initiatives and equity-oriented educators. Both of those modules were 3 days in length, and we have taken a team to both of them. Our final one is equity-oriented strategic planning. Our final session for that is Thursday. So that will have been, again, another 3-day session that has included a team of educators and, administrators and teachers. And so we look forward to creating some products from that to move us forward as far as our strategic planning initiatives as they relate to making sure that we are employing the most equitable practices possible within our district. So that's a very brief update, but trying to keep everything as short as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. If there are no questions, we will move now to the reports from board committees. The first one is the Academic Excellence, Strategic Planning, and Communications Committee. And I know that Dr. Blau is not here. Mrs. Fox and Mrs. Heinrich are both members of that committee. I'll offer you an opportunity to make a report. Otherwise, I'm happy to make a report as well. Go ahead, Mrs. Heinrich. Thank you.
Dr. Blau asked me to
Perfect.
report on this.
Okay, great.
And Mrs. Fox, please feel free to fill in any gaps that I had. The committee met on June 8th. Dr. Blau, Mrs. Fox, and myself were present, and we really had a full agenda. We talked about the MME requirement, and Dr. Coffin gave us some information on the student numbers and the testing. And because of the pandemic and the remote students were not required by the Michigan Department of MDE to come in only for the testing, that we really did not test all of our students this year. And so the district administration is going to recommend that the Board of Education is going to lift the requirement, because right now part of our graduation requirements is to complete the MME testing. And so in the fall, that will come to us for an action item for doing that. And it's so that the students don't have to do the makeup test. In the past, they had to do that. The next thing was the AP and the IB update. And we were given information on the IB program and the advanced placement program, and they gave us data and numbers and statistics on the number of students and the number of classes and enrollments, demographics, student support, and also shared with us there's a partnership with the Equal Opportunity Schools, and that's to ensure that all students have equitable access to high school programs. And as Ms. Fox pointed out, that vertical alignment is going to be just one of the things that is important in making sure that our students start in the beginning so that they're prepared for all the options. They talked about the Literacy Essentials Oakland. Is a program through Oakland County, and it's practices to every student in every classroom every day. It includes participants from every district, and it was really exciting to see the leadership team that is working in the development of this program for the district literacy roadmap through K through 5. And so we have a lot of strong leaders in our district. The discipline data update, Dr. Todd Symington talked about information, and he told us about suspensions and disproportionality. And he went through and he explained some of the preventative and intervention measures to reduce suspensions across the district. And he gave us numbers and data that I think is included in the board packet, but we have a significant decline in the number of suspensions since 2008 and 2009, which is when schools were required to actually track the discipline data. The other thing is the MI Blueprint for Comprehensive Student Recovery, and that's through the state of Michigan as a roadmap for school districts in supporting students over the next 6 to 18 months. And the district's addressing key areas, and it's going to continue to work through that in the fall, over the summer, and to prepare the students when they return in the fall. Future addenda items, we talked about the value of MME requirement for graduating seniors, understanding more the work of the Equal Opportunity Schools, looking at supports for the students in the IB, AP programs, and also discipline, behavior, skills, expectations included in the curriculum. Anything else, Ms. Fox?
I think you've done a very good job.
Okay.
Very thorough.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the Finance Committee update.
That's me also. We actually met this morning. Board President Ms. Weems and Mr. Walker were present. Mr. Barth talked about the underground storage tanks in the transportation. There's two 10,000-gallon tanks, and he actually is going to present in the discussion item and an action item to identify that, and so we'll have more information on that today. And then we met with the Plant Moran on the audit, and they walked us through the audit and asked us if there were any questions and just gave us a kind of an overview on that. And then the final presentation results will be presented in October.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions, we will now move to discussion items. The first discussion item is underground storage tanks.
Hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm hearing a little feedback, sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'll try to be as brief as possible, but it's a really important topic, obviously. There's a lot of concerns that I have ever since starting the district and learning about our storage tanks and its history. So, as I mentioned in the board memo, the district has two 10,000-gallon diesel storage tanks that service our fleet of 100 buses. These fiberglass reinforced plastic tanks were installed in 1991 with a life expectancy of 20 to 25 years. Keep in mind, though, that the 20 to 25-year expectancy is under optimal soil and traffic conditions, which we probably don't have in terms of soil, and we know we don't have in terms of traffic conditions. So the area that we're talking about where these tanks are buried is traversed by 100 buses 2 or more times a day, and each of these buses weighs 24,000 pounds. So depending on the composition of the soil and its compaction, a significant amount of weight and vibration on 2 aging tanks presents a real concern regarding tank leakage or the potential for a full tank collapse. Although our underground tanks are carefully monitored by our environmental consultant, Arch Environmental, and George Onko is here as one of the participants if you have any questions, is with some certain degree of certainty with Arch and myself that the tanks are really in need of replacing. And any diesel fuel leak poses a significant threat, as you know, to the environment through soil or water table contamination. Through monitoring, though, we're fairly certain that there's no major leaks currently, but again, we're trying to forestall any major leaks that could occur because of the location of those tanks. So with all that being said, an RFP was written with our environmental consultant, and remember, Arch Environmental Consultants have been the district's fuel system and energy consultant for the past 9 years, and they're intimately aware of our fuel storage and delivery system, which includes all state reporting. It should be noted that during this, a routing plan was created by Mr. Hill for bus maneuvering and safety protocols once the project begins. So a mandatory pre-bid meeting was held at Transportation on May 28th with 5 tank removal and replacement companies in attendance. A virtual bid opening was then held on June 7th with a single bid received from TSP Environmental out of Redford, Michigan. It's likely that no comparative bids were received due to the prevailing limitations of the supply chain, and I'll talk more about that as a result of the pandemic. So we decided to do a post-bid meeting with TSP Environmental and their subcontractor Phoenix Environmental on June 8th. Arch was also in attendance for this meeting. So just so the board is aware, TSP Environmental is a woman-owned business that has been in operation since 2001. They have done similar projects in the past, including removal and replacement of tanks for the Macomb Intermediate School District and for the state of Michigan. They worked on similar projects with Arch Environmental in the past, and Arch has confirmed that they're quite capable of removing and replacing the tanks in a safe and expeditious manner. So in conclusion, there's a very real risk in leaving 30-year-old tanks in place with not only the possibility but the probability of a catastrophic leak. Such an event could cost the district millions in remediation, as well as jeopardize the relationship the district enjoys with the city of Farmington and the community. There's also a very real concern that Scott mentioned with availability and the cost of materials in the future due to the pandemic. The projected delivery of these coated steel tanks, based on discussion with the TSP in Phoenix, is currently 14 to 22 weeks out. So we're already seeing the impact of the pandemic with tanks. So if we delay this project, it's likely it'll push the project back at least 2 years with a considerable increase in project cost, and then you run the risk again of a tank failure or some major catastrophic event. So the project is budgeted at $497,244, which includes a contract award of $439,280 to TSP, Arch Environmental's project management cost of $36,000, and just like Aaron as part of the bond project, we're doing a 5% contingency for unforeseen conditions, including cost escalations. So unforeseens in this case could be in such things as soil remediation and the disposal of contaminated soils beyond the area identified in project scope. Also, the project includes not only the tanks, but the associated fuel delivery system, soil remediation, disposal, concrete work, sensors, and monitoring equipment. It's expected the project will take 4 to 6 weeks once the tanks have arrived. So as an action item later, I'm asking the board to consider approving the transportation diesel tank removal and replacement project as presented in the amount of $497,244, funding from the 2018 Capital Projects Buildings and Site Fund. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I do have one question. I appreciate that there was one bidder, and I can understand all of the reasons why. Can you help us understand a bit more how we get ourselves comfortable that the pricing on this is reasonable?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that enter into this. I mentioned the pandemic. What I didn't mention, I should have mentioned, is there's only 2 manufacturers of these tanks in the country. And so everybody is clamoring to get tanks, and TSP has relationships and supply chain that they can likely get it, hopefully in that 14 to 22 weeks, which is actually very aggressive because of what the conditions are in terms of getting these large storage tanks that they're not built and stored anywhere. They're built to order when they're needed and ordered. So we're lucky to have that relationship with TSP if we go forward. Also, if you check, and I checked Construction Connect and some others that estimated the project at around $400,000. So the cost to me is actually right within ballpark, especially considering the pandemic. Again, we couldn't predict whether one or more bidders would participate because of the environment. It's like I say, it's likely they bowed out because they couldn't get the product. They didn't mention that. They don't have to give a reason why they're not bidding. So we're pretty comfortable based on what Arch has seen in the past in terms of cost, the area that's involved, the amount of work we're doing. We think that number is pretty consistent with other projects similar.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we can move on to our next end of the year student progress goal report. Thank you very much, John, for your presentation.
I am going to go ahead and share my screen one more time, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hendrickson for her to share the information tonight.
Thank you for having me. Throughout the year, we've utilized benchmark assessments to help us monitor achievement and growth. These are assessments we have historically used in the district. We just always want to make everyone aware that it is important that as we look at data, we have consistent routines and methods for looking at data and talking about data, so we can go from inquiry to causal to next steps and action. And so we have a data protocol that helps us do that, which is based on Littman-Wellman. And one of the things we want the community and the board and staff to remember as we share this data is that it's always important for us to look at multiple data sets as we look to ask questions and think about next steps. The other piece is that the data for this school year we need to make sure that we're taking into account the context of the pandemic and its implications on the analysis of the data, because it's always important to look at data in context. As the start of the year, we set 2 goals as part of our extended learning plan. Both goals looked to address our growth and achievement in literacy and mathematics. And so we committed to monitoring literacy and math growth from fall to winter and fall to spring. And it should be noted that we're also assessing achievement as well as growth, but we included growth measures within our goals, and that we've been using NWEA and Easy CBM to help us understand our students' performance. One of the things that we did was speak to you in the winter around our fall to winter data for NWEA math growth assessment. And soon after that, we had an opportunity to establish pretty good series of conversations with NWEA themselves. We know we brought NWEA to talk with the board at a retreat. They were able to provide us some additional reports to help us understand our achievement and our growth in reading mathematics across the system, looking at last winter to this winter. And we are actually requesting the same report for fall to spring. And they need some 4 to 6 weeks to prepare that report. So we wanted to revisit our winter to winter story. So one of the first things we remember is that NWEA map allows us to look at achievement. And so what this excerpt from the report shows us, if you look to the right, is that in reading, you look at all of our grade levels, we are above average in our achievement in reading. And then in math, we're either average to above average in reading, which is indicative of prior year performance in Farmington Public Schools. And so we are pleased to know that we are really hitting that above average at many of our grade levels in reading and mathematics. Achievement tells us only one part of our students' performance. The other part is looking at where they started at any given time and looking at where their growth is. And so if you look here, it indicates that in reading, we have average to above average growth at each of the grade levels that we assessed. And we did notice that in mathematics, we're indicating average growth and some below average growth. And so while we have average to above average achievement, when we think about each and every child growing from where they started to where they ended in the year, we want to make sure we're maximizing their growth potential, because even students achieving at above average to high average should be continuing to grow and not resting where they're sitting. So we're taking a look at our mathematics and our reading program and all of our instruction to see how we can maximize growth across the system while we have high achievement.
Mrs. Hendrickson, can I interrupt you just for a second?
So that is kind of a recap of last winter when we think about achievement and growth in Farmington Public Schools.
That's weird.
We want time to show you where we started in the fall to where our students ended in the spring as we. Okay, sorry. Yep.
Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. Just one question. Can you just level set us? And I get ahead of myself. I think you're going to do this. You're going to tell us what achievement means, right? What that benchmark is.
We can revisit that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
In the NWEA math assessment, we get 2 numbers for kids. We get what's called a percentile rank, which tells us how well they've achieved relative to normed data. So for each student, we get a percentile rank. And that percentile rank can put a student, if you look at the lower left side of the screen, their performance bands that are low, low average, average, high. So if our students score on the NWEA above the 60 percentile rank, that means they're outperforming their grade level peers who took that same assessment at that same grade level. So what we have noticed as we looked at fall of this year to spring of this year, that we're identifying, depending on the grade band, for example, grades 1 through 2, 60% of our kids were high average or high performance band. That's saying high amount of achievement. In mathematics, only about 59.3% of students had a high, average, or high percentile rank. So what we notice here is that we're seeing some consistency in previous data that our students are continuing to achieve at a high average or high percent. But we still continue to see, I'm sorry, you had flipped, Dr. Coffin, that we still see some differences by subgroup on their level of achievement. Dr. Coffin, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the piece here is just that we've recognized that our students have grown, just not to the level that we want to happen. And as Margaret had mentioned, in the winter to winter, that shows us that that's been something that we have been focusing on and will continue to focus on as we move into the start of the school year.
So the first two data sets we just explored, if you could go back one, Dr. Coffin, is that when we first look at NWA data, to go back to Ms. Weems's question, is we first look to see what our kids' overall achievement is. And if we see kids at over 60 percentile rank, we're seeing that they are high average to high. And a majority of students sit at that average band of 41 to 60. So we see this as productive data, that we see this percent of our students still performing at a high average and high. Although we have concerns and continue to look at the discrepancy in performance amongst our subgroups. NWA shows us achievement, so overall performance relative to peers based on normed data for NWEA, but it also shows us their level of growth relative to the norm data that NWA provides. So each student takes this assessment in fall and has a starting score. Each student takes the assessment in spring and has an ending score. What NWA does is allow us to project, based on where they start, how much growth do we suspect they'll have by the end of the year based on normed data. What we're seeing here in this chart is that depending on the grade band and the content area, reading or math, that we're only seeing about either 33 to 46% of our students this year made that growth projection. That is lower than historical data from fall to spring. So it doesn't map back to our historical performance, and it is a little lower than what our fall to winter growth performance was as well.
I think also another point, Margaret, is as you see our grade bands 6 through 9, just recognizing that there were other assessments happening at the exact same time. NWEA was given online, so our students could take it at home. But once we got to that 6 through 9 grade band, we had less participation on our NWEA. So there's a couple different factors going into that data as well.
Yeah. So as we look at achievement, we're noticing consistent achievement within our system, but this year our growth levels were impacted. And when we look at that, we are thinking about a number of contextual things that happened across the year. For example, transitions, multiple transitions throughout the year between remote and in person. And all those transitions teachers had to make and students have to make. The other thing we look at here in talking to NWEA is that whether a student took it remote or in person they've noticed some impact on the scores. For example, at the lower L and upper L, they noticed in higher scores in the fall than we would expect to see. And they're attributing that, or they're hypothesizing that a lot of parents helped their child through that assessment when it was taken remotely in the fall. And as we moved to winter and spring administrations, we had more students taking it in person than were taking it remote as compared to fall. And so we might have had some slight inflations in the fall score, setting up for some pretty big projections for where students would end the year. So we're not saying that explains all of this data. All we're saying is that there are a number of things we're looking at, and we're actually requesting, I apologize for my dogs. There's additional reports where we'll be requesting from NWEA so we can take a deeper dive into what our growth and achievement has looked like this school year.
Can I just ask a question or just make a comment? If you go back to the slide when it talked about achievement, and it had the percentile scores. So the one B, yeah, the percentile scores. So just from my understanding, it's like we're comparing, when you do the percentile scores, it's comparing with students that all took these tests under the same conditions. And so we're saying, how are our students doing compared to all students that took these tests under pandemic conditions, which was remote and in person and things like that. And so we're
ranks, and the norm data with NWEA is based on a normal school year, normal instructional weeks, in-person instruction. And so we're using those norms and applying that during this time in which our test administration and our instructional approaches looked different.
Okay, so like it looks like we're doing okay as far as percentiles compared to, because it's comparing students in all these different places that took the test are really, the whole world was under a pandemic, so conditions were similar. Whereas when you go to the next slide, which is student growth, we're just looking at how our individual students did within our district. And then I'm always looking at things that are under our control and things that are not under our control. And so I think you address those things.
So growth is still based on normed data.
Okay.
So the achievement was based on normed data. It was based on millions of students that took that test at the same grade level. So many years ago when they renormed to this year. And all of this data here is also norm data. So when kids starts at the beginning of the year and they're projecting a growth to the end of the year, that amount of growth is actually linked back to the norm data that NWEA sets. So all of this growth data and achievement data is based on norm data under normal test administration and instructional delivery.
Thank you for that clarification, because I don't think I really understood it. My mind was interpreting it a little bit different, but thank you.
You're welcome, and I might not be as succinct or clear today as I might have on another day.
I have a question.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mrs. Hendrickson, we have one more question. Maybe now would be a good pause.
Okay. Could you back up to the previous slides? Right here. Can you help me understand the factors that are leading to the decline in the data as we move from grade 1 to grade 9? I understand, excuse me, I'm going to take these headphones off. I understand that we're dealing with a pandemic, so we take that particular piece out of it, but this decline from first grade to ninth grade in both settings, what's impacting that as our children are getting older, they're not either growing or achieving as much as they were when they were younger? Can you just help me with that, please?
So that trend that you're seeing is not different than what we've seen in other years, that we will have higher achievement and higher growth within our lower grade levels, and we can start to see that to decrease over time as we go to middle school and high school. And that's also not uncommon in other districts. One of the things that is unique about the growth in the NWEA scores themselves when you get to the secondary is that there's fewer and fewer growth amounts. So for example, at a grades 1 through 2, kids are expected to grow anywhere from 15 to 20, what we call RIT scores. It's the unit of measure on NWEA. When you get into ninth grade, it's like 3 RIT scores. to 5 RIT scores. So earlier in our learning experience in school, kids experience large amounts of growth. And what we notice in the later grades is that the norm data shows smaller amounts of growth in that time. So that is part of the explanation that I think an NWA person would talk about, that we do see this as a natural trend. What we have to look at is, in our own system, what are the opportunities we're providing K-5, middle school and high school, so that we can maximize student motivation, student engagement, consistency, instructional practice, curriculum, that connects to a lot of this equity and innovation work, so that we can maintain that engagement to support increased performance, whether that's achievement or growth. Dr. Coffin, I don't know if you have something you'd like to add to that.
Important to that. So for our first graders, for example, that test is read aloud to them. So we do expect to see significant growth there. So I think that makes a little bit of a difference. And also, when we think about our students in the older grades, if their achievement is high, like Margaret mentioned, there's only 1 or 2 points of growth. So if they didn't meet that, then, and it's not uncommon for somebody to score at the 99th percentile and then drop down to the 95th percentile. So it doesn't mean that, it just would not be reflected in the growth score. So those things are more likely to happen as students go farther into the curriculum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kindergarten took the Easy CBM assessment, which is a different type of data set than the NWEA. So if you could show me the next slide. Easy CBM sets up areas of particular focus that are critical to students being able to maximize performance later. And so letter name, letter sound, for example, are high leverage focus areas that if we can see where students' performance are on letter name, letter sound, phonemic segmenting, word fluency, word reading fluency, and some key concepts of number sense and mathematics. If we keep consistently assessing them on those core pivotal focus areas, we can have a sense of who's at risk. And so what we notice here is that in the fall, as students begin the year, we don't expect them to have received any instruction. And so there's a cut score for each of these areas. And you'll notice that our students come in 92% to 100% of them showing low risk to no risk of concern for performance. When we assess them in the spring, you'll notice that those percents have been reduced. The spring scores are based on having received instruction, and there's a new cut score for determining whether someone is low risk or no risk. So in the fall, our students are coming in as that traditional kindergartner. They receive instruction, and then we get and they have an cut score because they've now received instruction, and we look at where they are in each of these areas. Hitting 90%, 84, 72, and 77% are actually very typical data for us for kindergarten at the beginning, at the end of a school year. So we actually feel confident that our kindergarten students are coming out of this school year performing at a similar level to where our kindergarten students would have historically been. We do obviously still see demographic differences in terms of performance, and that is work that we continue to focus on.
No questions that you might have?
Any questions from board members? I want to say thank you for preparing this information. The board has been very interested in data and this level of aggregation as well. I think we're all, well, we shouldn't be surprised by some of the reduction in growth, right? We were concerned about this over the course of the pandemic. What we should be asking ourselves, though, is what we're going to do about it, what we're prepared to do about it. And I think we've already developed some very robust summer programming. I understand that you guys gave some thought and some concern to specific targeted groups, both those that you recognized needed some interventions and some supports over the summer, and developed specific targeted programming over the summer for that, and also identified some programming for students that should be growing more, right, that are already high achieving. And so I was really happy to see that. What I'll want to see, and I know you guys are continuing to work over it, including over the summer, is what we're going to start doing over the course of the next several years, right, to address learning and make sure that our kids are growing at the rate that we want them to. So with that, unless there are no, Mr. Rich.
Just very quickly, I wanted to, of course, thank the both of you for presenting this to us. This has been data that not only the board has been looking forward to going through, but also I know the community has had a lot of questions on this throughout the past year. I had a few questions, but luckily I was able to speak with Dr. Coffin on Sunday in between some of the graduations, so we were able to get a lot of those out of the way. So thank you for all the work that the two of you have done, as well as your teams, to get this to us. And as Ms. Weems said, figuring out what our strategies are to get us back to where we need to be for growth and continue to grow after that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Weems.
Thank you very much. Oh, Mrs. Smith.
I can't wait till we come out of these things. Thank you so much to the two of you for doing this work, because it goes hand in hand with our strategic planning as well. You know, you've got this part of it, which you've all been very transparent with getting this information. This not only does it help the board, but it helps the community. And then with you getting this information, such as the both of you have, it helps you to develop what you need to do for your strategic planning. So again, thank you both for your research and getting the information out to us. Do we need a little bit more growth? Yes, but you're working on that, and I appreciate it. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that grades are not out yet, but we would at some point appreciate that additional analysis. I know we have the information from the prior year, but having the ending grades for this period it would be helpful. And I have heard some questions from board members about how our students finished the year. Thank you so much for that report. Seeing no further questions, we are ready to move to public comment. Mrs. Buckley, do we have any public comment? Seeing that we have no public comment, I'm going to give it like 10 seconds before we close public comment. And seeing that we have no public comment, we are going to close public comment and move into our action items. The first action item is the budget, and you'll recall that we reviewed this at our last meeting as a discussion item. Is there a motion? Mrs. Heinrich.
Yes, as President Weems said at the last meeting, Jennifer Kaminsky gave us an overview of the budget. So I have a motion. I would move that the Board of Education approve the 2021-2022 General Appropriations Resolution as presented and waive the reading of the resolution.
Support.
There's been a motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to approve the General Appropriations Resolution. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Walker, can you give us a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
I myself am yes, and Ms. Williams?
I'm a yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Motion passes. Mrs.
All right,
Heinrich?
next is the 2021-2022 tax levy, and that was presented also at the last board meeting. So I move that the Board of Education approve the Form L4029 tax rate request for all properties, which results in 10.0796 mils on homesteads, in industrial personal property, 21.2000 mils on non-homesteads, and 16.0796 mils on commercial personal property.
Support?
Motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to approve the Form L4029 tax rate request for our properties. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Walker, may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
I myself am yes, and Ms. Weems.
I'm a yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. That motion passes.
All right, next is the current 2020-2021 budget amendment that was presented for discussion at the last board meeting. I move that the Board of Education approve the 2020-2021 revised general appropriations resolution as presented and waive the reading of the resolution.
Support?
Motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to approve the 2020-21 revised general appropriations resolution. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Walker, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
I myself am yes, and Ms. Weems.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Next, we have the underground storage tanks for transportation.
Ms. Weems?
Yes, I want to thank John Barth for just hitting the ground running. He's a new employee with the district, and he's just done a phenomenal job. I move that the Board of Education approve the removal and replacement of the diesel storage tanks at transportation as outlined in the June 10th, 2021 memo from John Barth, Director of Facilities, in the amount of $497,244, funds to come from the 2018 Capital Projects Building and Site Fund.
Support.
Motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mr. Walker, to approve the removal and replacement of the diesel storage tanks at transportation in the amount of $497,244. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call, Mr. Walker?
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich,
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
I myself am yes, and Ms. Weems.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we have a recommendation for approval of notice of layoff list. Mr. Walker, it looks like he wants to make that motion. Yes.
Before I make the motion, can I just simply say that this is not something that anybody wants to do, but we should also give a lot of credit to the staff that, given the situation and the number of people that we unfortunately have to let go, is incredibly small. So not that that's consolation to those persons, but you do what you can under the circumstances. So with that said, regretfully, I move that the Board of Education authorize the FEA layoff notice as presented in the June 15th, 2021 memo from Kathy Smith, Assistant Superintendent for Talent and Development.
Support?
Thank you. Motion moved by Mr. Walker, supported by Mrs. Smith, to authorize the FEA layoff notice as presented in our memo. Is there any discussion? I just want to say, as Mr. Walker mentioned, that this list is significantly lower than it has been in previous years. Regrettably, we understand the rationale for this. We can have a voice vote for this one. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have a recommendation for approval of the Farmington Transportation Association bargaining contract. Mrs. Smith.
I move that the Board of Education approve the bargaining contract between the Farmington Board of Education and the Farmington Transportation Association, FTA, as presented.
Support.
Move made by Mrs. Smith, supported by Mr. Walker, to approve the bargaining contract between the Farmington Board of Education and the Transportation Association. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote for the contracts, please.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
I myself am yes. And Ms. Weems?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we have the recommendation for approval of non-unit contracts. And Mrs. Fox?
I move that the Board of Education approves the contract between the Farmington Board of Education and the non-unit employees as presented.
Support.
Motion made by Mrs. Fox, supported by Mr. Walker, to approve the contract between the Board of Education and non-unit employees. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Walker, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
I myself am yes. And Ms. Weems?
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we have the recommendation for approval of the 2022 Early Childhood Compensation Package. Mr. Walker?
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2021-2022 Early Childhood Compensation Package as presented.
Support.
Motion made to approve the 2022 Early Childhood Compensation Package made by Mr. Walker, supported by Mr. Rich. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mr. Walker, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
I myself am yes. And Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we have appointment of legal representation. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. I move that the Board of Education authorize administration to contract for legal representation with the following firms for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Butler Law Group, P.C., Clark Hill, P.L.C., Miller Canfield Paddock and Stone, P.L.C., Miller Johnson Snell and Comiskey, P.L.C., and Seacrest Wardle.
Support.
Motion made by Mr. Rich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to approve the administration to contract for legal representation from the firms that were named. Is there any discussion? Mr. Walker?
More or less a question, and certainly not in opposition of the motion, but as we go forth, is there a procedure for reviewing our representation to determine our levels of satisfaction with the work that they're doing, how they're doing it, whether or not we want to change how things are done? How do we do that, or where does that discussion take place as we move into future years with this kind of thing?
That's a very good question. And so over the course of a year where we need representation, and often we may not use all of these people on the list. It depends on what's going on with the district.
Right.
The district generally is the one that's dealing with these folks on a day-to-day basis. When matters need to come to our attention, that's when we'll engage with our legal firms. So we have done that anytime something's come to us. Most recently, we had a discussion earlier today in closed session with our firm who is helping support the negotiations for our employees in our interaction. If we had any issues with those kinds of, with that representation, I think that's where we would have some conversations with our district.
Okay.
So that's generally how that happens. Dr. Goodrum?
And I believe in your board packet, there's a memo from Jeff Danziger, the memo that talks about what the
What each one
recommended.
does.
It gives you the administrative regulations that talk about how changes in representation are made.
Okay.
It basically says, the superintendent and the board, because we're approving this year, but Dr. Delgado said may have a relationship with someone and, have discussions with you about going to another firm. We also, on an annual basis, look at the rates. When the rates change, we have discussions about whether or not we are going to continue on in that vein or pursue other representation.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Rich?
And then just as one more follow-up on that, and I'm sure administration, I'm sure we'll see some nodding heads, is if they aren't satisfied with the legal representation, we won't work with them. This is giving them the ability to work with them. However, if they aren't providing the services to the level that we are expecting, then we have other firms that we can go with, and at the same time, they can always come to us and say, hey, this firm we have been considering this firm, we would like permission from the board to use them, instead of, say, this other firm who might not have been providing the high-level satisfaction that they wanted.
So we're not committed?
No.
Okay, that's
No, this is just allowing
some clarity around.
The admin to use this list as of now,
Okay.
so that they don't have to come to us every time they need to reach out to someone.
Got it.
And
Thank
this
you.
covers the next year. And so, of interest also is that there have been providers who have been removed from the list since, 2016, based on a determination that the service, could have been either better procured or perhaps better service elsewhere.
Okay.
So that does happen from time to time. Mrs. Smith?
I pretty much had the same concerns as Mr. Walker, due to the fact that we are looking at a lot of things that have happened in this district this year, mainly with the lawsuits. I'm concerned with a couple of the firms on here, because I don't think we would be in the positions that we were in or are in if we changed our law firms. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Any further discussion? I think we're okay to do a voice vote on this one. So we are, again, the motion is to authorize the administration to contract for this legal representation, not necessarily that we will be engaging in legal representation, but that this is the list of firms that the district will currently have to engage with should they need to, and this does not preclude them from engaging with others upon board approval. So the motion is to contract with the legal representation that's listed in there. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, motion passes. The next matter is the closed session minutes. Mrs. Smith?
I move that the Board of Education approve the June 1st, 2021 closed session minutes as presented.
Support.
Motion made by Mrs. Smith, supported by Mr. Rich to approve the June 1st closed session minutes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right. Next item is our annual organization meeting. Our board has its organizational meeting in June. With new boards generally taking office in January, many boards hold their officer elections during the January monthly meeting. The Michigan statute does not dictate, however, the method through which school boards conduct their officer elections, but our board bylaws do specify that we have a June organizational meeting. We will ask our policy committee to take a look at that, given feedback that we've had over the past few months, but for now, we're following our bylaws, which provide for an organizational meeting, including the election of officers at this time. We will call for nominations from the floor. I've given board members a briefing on the process, but wanted to provide a little bit more detail around how this process works. Again, we will call for nominations from the floor. Each board member has an opportunity to make nominations. Nominations do not need to be seconded, but it is acceptable for members to second a nomination, but we don't have to have a second. Then we'll ask the person who has been nominated whether they accept the nomination, and then we will move into a voice call vote, meaning we will ask for ayes and nays. So there will be a call for the votes in the order of the nomination. So if there are multiple people that are nominated, we will follow the flow of the nominations for purposes of voting. Then we will ask for ayes and nays. If the first nominee does not get the majority of the votes, then we will move on to the next nominee. The first nominee with the majority of votes will be elected to that officer position. Are there any questions before we proceed and open up nominations? Mr. Rich?
Just a clarifying point is you can nominate yourself.
Okay, perfect.
Just letting people
Yeah,
know.
perfect.
I didn't hear what he said.
You can nominate yourself.
You
Oh, okay,
cannot.
nobody gonna do that.
Just so everyone is aware.
Perfect. Okay, we will now open nominations for the role of President of the Board of Education. Is there a nomination? Mr. Rich?
Sure. So I am happy to nominate Terry Weems for president.
Second.
Thank you. I will accept that nomination. Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, we will now vote on the office of President of Education. Terry Weems, this sounds weird. I nominate I'm nominated, I guess, for President of the Board of Education. Is there any discussion there before we move in? Mrs. Smith?
Ms. Weems, I think you have done a phenomenal job. You have brought this board together. You have gotten us through a pandemic. You've gotten us through many of things. The collaboration as a board, working to get a superintendent in. We couldn't have asked for a better leader in you. And I fully would love for you to stay our president.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All in favor for Terry Weems for president? That sounds funny. Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Terry Weems for president, that's great. That's weird.
You get to talk in third person a little bit.
I know, right?
We will now open up nominations for vice president of the Board of Education. Mrs. Heinrich?
I would like to nominate Zach Rich as vice president.
Excellent. Mr. Rich, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, any discussion? Mrs. Smith?
During this time, I know I joked a lot with the two of you by saying, calling you Joe and Kamala. What a great team. We couldn't have a better selection for the two of you to help keep this board cohesive and working collaboratively with all seven of us. And I support this decision as well.
Thank you. I really enjoy working with you, Mr. Rich, so I'm definitely supportive of that nomination. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. Next, we will open up nominations for the role of secretary. Mr. Walker?
I nominate for recording secretary, Ms. Angie Smith.
Very good. Mrs. Smith, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Very good. Is there any discussion?
I have a point to that.
Mr. Walker?
I think that it's time for us to take it full advantage in the officer role of our senior leadership that's found here on this board. Ms. Smith brings many, many things to the table. The institutional history, one of those things. And I think this is a great time, being always at crossroad points this year, it seems, for us to, again, take full advantage of our senior leadership. Let us usher ourselves into a new school year with new possibilities and new things that we can accomplish. And I have great confidence in her.
Mrs. Smith has served us well as secretary before.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Definitely support that as well. All in favor of Angie Smith for secretary?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we will open up nominations for treasurer of the Board of Education. Mrs. Smith?
I'd like to nominate our treasurer that we already have, Claudia Henrich, as our treasurer, because I think she's done a great job.
She has, I agree. I definitely support that nomination. Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I'll accept the nomination.
I didn't ask you, I don't think, if you accept it, but you better, so. Did I ask you? I don't remember. You accept it already. Ms. Heinrich, thank you for accepting the nomination. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Heinrich, you've done a phenomenal job. Thank you for serving us, and I have no doubt that you'll continue to serve us well.
Thank you.
All in favor for Claudia Heinrich as treasurer?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes. Great. We now have our officers for the period of, right now, oh, great. Oh. We have our officers, Terry Weems as president, Mr. Zach Rich as vice president, Mrs. Angie Smith as secretary, and Mrs. Claudia Heinrichs as treasurer. This is for our next school year, unless we make a change to our bylaws, which is quite possible to change our bylaws to be more consistent with what other school boards do, which would be a January timeframe. Okay, thank you. That ends our election of officers. We will now move to items from the treasurer.
Thank you. We have an expenditures report. I move that the Board of Education approve the expenditures as outlined in the expenditures printout dated June 15th, 2021 as follows. General Fund, $9,521,786. General Fund Athletics, $379,668. Debt Fund, 0. Capital Projects, 2018 Bond Fund, $318,565. Capital Projects, 2020 Bond Fund, $23,338. Nutritional Services Fund, $218,040. And Benefit Stabilization Fund, $1,227,085. For a total of $11,688,482.
Support.
Motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mr. Rich, to approve the expenditures. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposed, motion passes. Mrs. Heinrich?
Second, we have bank and investment institutions and account signatories. There's a number of banks that we are authorizing the school district to use. It just because we're authorizing them does not mean that we are using all of these banks. It's just giving them permission if it's needed. So I move that the board authorize for the 2021-2022 school year the deposit of school district funds in the financial institutions as listed, and authorize, without reading the list, and authorize the investment of surplus funds through the following institutions that are listed, and authorize the Farmington Public School signatories for the listed funds for 2021-2022.
Support.
Motion made by Mrs. Heinrich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to authorize the deposit of school district funds into financial institutions for the 2022 year, and authorize the investment of surplus funds into financial institutions, and authorize signatories for the listed funds for 2022 as listed. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have the consent agenda. Mr. Rich?
Thank you. I move that the Board of Education approve the June 15th, 2021 consent agenda as follows. 1, approval of minutes for the June 1st, 2021 special and regular meeting, the Head Start Director's monthly report, personnel items, non-resident tuition rates, and our 2021-2022 memberships, which include the Michigan High School Athletic Association, Metropolitan Detroit Bureau of School Studies, Incorporated, Michigan Association of School Boards, Michigan Association of School Boards Legal Trust Fund, Michigan Institute for Educational Management, Michigan Negotiators Association, Michigan Association of School Personnel Administrators, Michigan Parent Teacher Association, Minority Student Achievement Network, and the Greater Farmington Area Chamber of Commerce.
Support.
Motion made by Mr. Rich, supported by Mrs. Smith, to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. That takes us to reports from board representatives. Are there any reports from board representatives? Seeing none, we will move to recommendations for future agenda items. Seeing none, we will move to good and welfare. Is there, Mrs. Smith?
You're about to give me another last name, I see. I want to first thank all of our new colleagues for a phenomenal job this year. Those of you that were elected in November, and then Mr. Walker, who was appointed, what a great job all of you have done, and all of the work you've done with getting here and getting where you are. I know it's been overwhelming, but you've done it. And I want to thank again Dr. Goodrum for stepping in and taking on the role of our interim superintendent and her great leadership. And to all of our principals and staff, but this weekend, starting from Friday all the way up, the graduations. Kudos to all of the principals, Mr. Reese, Mr. Shelton, and Mr. Green, and happy birthday, Mr. Green. Thank you for such a beautiful, beautiful day on Saturday and Sunday. Being able to be on the field and see children, and to be able to be in the company of each other. You know, many of you think that we have been able to meet and see staff members, but we have not unless you've gone into a building. I had the pleasure and opportunity to actually sit down and have a great time and laugh, not only with my colleagues, but with Dr. Coffin and Dr. Goodrum and Diane Bauman and her staff. Thank you all so much. And again, congratulations to our seniors, and congratulations to our president, Ms. Weems, who got up and gave some beautiful remarks, and mainly at North Farmington, because she had a senior that came out and who looked phenomenal. They could pass for sisters. But congratulations to you all. And to our staff, our students, and our families that celebrate Pride. Happy Pride Month. I am a parent that is celebrating that myself. So to those of you that celebrate, happy Pride Month to you all. And have a safe and fun summer. If you haven't been vaccinated, please stay covered. As you see, we are not, because we all are. And it looks so good to see my colleagues without their mask and be able to smile and talk to them and just have a great time. And thank you again. And thank you, Mr. Walker, for all the laughs that you gave me on Sunday. We'll keep that amongst ourselves as a family. So thank all of you so much. And I usually don't say this because I'm kind of hard. I love each and every one of you. I do, regardless of my behavior.
Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Heinrich.
Yeah, just a shout out to the Farmington High School students, the musical that was student written and directed, just the resilience of our students and just the enthusiasm and how they just overcame a pandemic, and the show must go on, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And just a shout out to all of our families and just the perseverance and the resilience. And it's just, as a parent, it's just such a proud moment to see that milestone of high school graduation, just one of many, but it was just a joy to share in that celebration with my fellow school board members and all the families in our district. So thank you, families, for all of your support, and just students for your resiliency, and we're just you're going to have a great future. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
I just want to also echo the sentiments for our graduates. If I may lose a little bit of professionalism in this moment, the graduates looked good.
Yes.
They looked so fantastic walking across the stage. I really enjoyed a lot of them stopping and looking at their diplomas like, is this really, yeah, cool. We saw a lot of that. It was just absolutely fantastic. And it was a wonderful reminder why we're all here. And to every single member of Farmington Public School District who helped every single one of these graduates get to this particular place in time, thank you. They couldn't do it without you. We couldn't be this district without you. Thank you for working your way through one heck of a year through the pandemic. And to my colleagues, thank you for helping keep me afloat over the last few months along the way. Though I gave up the officer position to someone highly qualified and definitely needed to have it, more so than I look forward to upping the ante on some committee work, in the fall. But I'm just excited about where we're going as a district. We've got new leadership in our superintendent. We've got this board that's working together. We've gotten over an awful lot of humps along the way. I'm genuinely excited about the possibility and the probability of greatness for our district. And so enjoy the summer, and let's get ready to get to it in the fall.
That's great. And so I have some comments, and I don't want to repeat everything that was said because you guys said it beautifully, and I would just be duplicative. But I do want to recognize a few things that have happened over the past couple of weeks that just bring me joy, in addition to graduation, and just kind of celebrate why we're here. There have been a number of awards ceremonies, honors nights, and I had an opportunity to watch those, and it was brilliant to hear some of the students who got to recognize their teachers. It was actually, a tearjerker to hear some of our teachers and staff get recognized by students for, just to hear about all of the things that they're doing to bring them along, to support them, some in very little ways and some in really huge ways. Honors Night was a great evening as well, if you had a chance to watch that. I also got to see Day of Strings. I don't have any students playing strings anymore, but I love that, and I'm so glad that there are so many things that we got to do despite the pandemic, and I really want us to focus on that. I recognize that there's a lot of loss and there's a lot of personal stories associated with this past year, but I'm really hopeful that we'll look through and appreciate what we've been through and what we can do even despite all of this. And I'm really honored to be serving with you guys. This has been the toughest 6 months, I think, of my life, just in terms of everything that's going on, but it's been made so much easier because of the collaboration and the cohesiveness of this board and the addition of Dr. Goodrum. So thank you to all of you for what you're doing. I have just every confidence that we're going to continue to do great things.
Amen.
Thank you, and congratulations to the graduates, obviously.
Yes.
And Ms. Weems and I got to go over to Lanigan.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
see the eagle that Mr. Smith had, Greg Smith. And it's funny because we were asked would we hold it. Well, the only way I like my birds is on a plate, so we didn't hold the bird. But thank you, Mr. Smith and your staff.
You're right.
So I don't even think, Dr. Goodrum, did you hold the bird too?
No, we were all good on that.
No, she did not.
Yeah, we're fine. But you're right. I mean, it's not just, there are some folks who are leaving us for good, but there are also lots of transitions happening. So it was really nice to see some of those clap outs as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, great job. And I'm looking forward to prom, too, tonight and tomorrow for our graduates. So, Mr. Rich.
Thank you. I want to be brief because I know a lot of us, or at least some of us, started today at 8 a.m. with a board meeting and it's over 12 hours of school board things today. So I just wanted to thank everyone for helping us get through this very difficult year. Congratulations to our graduates, and congratulations to their families and support systems. Congratulations, Ms. Weems, on your recent graduate. And thanks to both you and Dr. Goodrum for your continued efforts, your leadership over this past 6 months. We would not be where we are right now and in such a strong position without the both of you. And so it is quite clear that, this board has made another decision tonight to keep you in this president role, and we are very happy that you accepted the nomination. I've been, for people who don't know, I've been joking about, when someone gets nominated for the president role, you want to see that unanimous vote, but you're always worried about it being, a 5-1 and a 6-1 with the person nominated being the I don't want it, saying no. But we are very thankful that you said yes, and we're looking forward to seeing what we continue to do in this next 6 months or however long we have you as our president. Dr. Goodrum, thank you so much. I know we have a day or calendar
15
clicking down right now, but that doesn't mean, but the great thing is that even though you won't be in the interim superintendent role anymore, you will still be a very strong member in our district and a gift that keeps on giving. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone on this board, and everyone please have a safe and enjoyable summer, and look forward to getting done the remaining business that we do have before we have a little bit of a break. Yes. But thank you everyone.
Thank you. Well done. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Yay.